Welcome to Bot Thoughts by Amtalk Soft. I'm Alex, and today we're tackling one of the most divisive questions in software engineering right now. A recent Stack Overflow survey found that 84% of developers are using AI coding tools in their daily work. Cursor, GitHub Copilot, Claude Code, ChatGPT. They're everywhere. But here's the question nobody agrees on. Is this making us better developers, or are we creating a generation of engineers who can't code without AI holding their hand? Sam, what's your take?
It's both, Alex, and I think that's what makes this so interesting. The productivity gains are real and measurable. GitHub's own research shows Copilot users complete tasks 46% faster. That's not a marginal improvement. That's nearly cutting development time in half. But there's a hidden cost that most people aren't talking about. I've started seeing junior developers who can ship features but can't explain how their code actually works. They can prompt their way to a working solution, but when something breaks in production at 2 a.m., they're lost.
Okay, but isn't that always been the case with new tools? People said the same thing about Stack Overflow 20 years ago. Oh, developers are just copying and pasting from the internet. They don't really understand the code. And before that, people said the same thing about high-level languages. Real programmers write assembly. Every generation of tools gets this criticism.
That's a fair point, and I partially agree, but there's a key difference. When you copy code from Stack Overflow, you still have to read it, understand it, and integrate it into your code base. There's friction that forces learning. With AI coding assistance, that friction is nearly gone. You describe what you want in English and working code appears. You tab to accept and move on. The learning step is optional. And when the learning step is optional, a lot of people skip it.
Let's look at the actual data, though, because I think the doom and gloom narrative misses some really important nuances. The same studies that show faster completion also show that code quality doesn't decrease significantly. Error rates stay roughly the same, and developers report higher job satisfaction. They're spending less time on boilerplate and more time on interesting problems. Isn't that exactly what we want?
The quality metrics are tricky. Yes, the code passes tests and doesn't have more bugs on average. But there's a difference between code that works and code that's well architected. AI-generated code tends to be locally correct but globally inconsistent. It solves the immediate problem without considering the broader system design. I've reviewed code bases where you can literally tell which functions were AI-generated because they use completely different patterns than the rest of the code. Different naming conventions, different error handling approaches, different architectural styles within the same file.
Let's talk about the tools themselves, because they're not all the same. We wrote a whole blog series on this at Amtalk Soft. Cursor, Copilot, and Claude Code all have very different approaches. How do you see them fitting into a developer's workflow?
Great question. GitHub Copilot is the most widely adopted. It's inline autocomplete on steroids. It predicts what you're about to type and fills it in. It's fantastic for boilerplate, repetitive patterns, and test generation. But it's essentially a very sophisticated autocomplete. It doesn't understand your project architecture. Cursor takes a different approach. It has deep code base awareness. It indexes your entire project and can make changes across multiple files. It understands context in a way Copilot doesn't. For refactoring and complex multi-file changes, it's significantly better. And then there's Claude Code, which operates as a full agent. It can read your code base, run tests, execute commands, and make coordinated changes across dozens of files. It's the most capable, but also the most autonomous. You give it a task, and it goes and does it.
And that autonomy is exactly what scares some people, right? The idea of an AI making changes across your code base without you reviewing every line. How do you think about the trust equation there?
Trust should be earned incrementally. Start with autocomplete. Get comfortable with Copilot filling in function bodies. Then move to Cursor for multi-file refactors, but review every change before committing. Then, once you're confident in your ability to review AI-generated code critically, try agentic tools like Claude Code for larger tasks. The mistake people make is jumping straight to the autonomous end without building the review skills first. It's like giving a student pilot the keys to an autopilot system before they've learned to fly manually. The autopilot works great until it doesn't, and then you need the manual skills to recover.
This brings up the junior developer question, which I think is the most important part of this debate. If you're a new developer in 2026, you've never known a world without AI coding tools. You learn to code with Copilot. Is that a problem?
It's a problem if, and only if, the junior developer uses AI as a replacement for understanding rather than as an accelerator for learning. Here's what I mean. If a junior uses AI to generate a sorting algorithm and then studies the generated code to understand how it works, that's fantastic. They're learning faster than any previous generation of developers. But if they use AI to generate code, ship it, and move on without ever understanding it, they're building a house of cards. My advice to juniors is this: use AI tools aggressively, but follow the explain it back rule. After AI generates code for you, you should be able to explain every line to a colleague. If you can't, you don't understand your own code base, and that will catch up with you.
What about senior developers? Because I've heard a different concern from them. Some seniors say they're actually becoming less productive with AI tools because they spend more time reviewing and correcting AI output than they would have spent just writing it themselves.
That's real, and it usually means they're using the tools wrong. Senior developers get the most value from AI when they use it for code they already know how to write but don't want to spend time on. Test generation is the perfect example. Writing unit tests is tedious but important. AI can generate 80% of your test suite in minutes. The senior developer reviews them, adds edge cases the AI missed, and moves on. That's a huge win. Where seniors struggle is when they try to use AI for complex architectural decisions or novel problem solving. AI is bad at those things. It generates plausible-looking solutions that are subtly wrong in ways that require deep domain expertise to catch. The rule of thumb: use AI to accelerate what you already know. Use your brain for what you're still figuring out.
Let's touch on the legal and ethical side briefly. We did a blog post on this too, blog 19 in our AI Dev Tools series. If AI writes the code, who owns it? Who's responsible when it breaks? This is still a gray area, right?
Huge gray area. Right now, the legal consensus is forming around the idea that AI-generated code is treated the same as code you wrote yourself. You're responsible for it. If your AI-generated code has a security vulnerability that leads to a data breach, you can't blame Copilot. This actually reinforces the review argument. You need to understand and be able to defend every line of code you ship, regardless of who or what wrote it. Companies are starting to formalize this in their code review policies. Some require explicit flags on AI-generated code. Others require that all AI-generated code goes through the same review process as human code. The smart companies are doing both.
There's a bigger philosophical shift happening here too, which we explored in our blog on intent-driven development. The idea that coding is moving from writing instructions to expressing intent. You describe what you want, and the AI figures out how. Is that the future?
I think it's part of the future, but not the whole future. Intent-driven development works beautifully for well-understood problems. Build me a REST API with these endpoints. Create a React component that displays this data. Generate tests for this function. For those tasks, expressing intent is faster and better than writing code manually. But for genuinely novel problems, problems where you don't even know what the right solution looks like yet, you still need developers who can think algorithmically, reason about systems, and debug at a fundamental level. The best developers in 2026 are bilingual. They can express intent when that's efficient, and they can drop down to manual coding when the problem requires it. They switch fluently between the two. That's the skill to develop.
All right, let's get practical. If someone's listening to this and they want to start using AI coding tools the right way, what's your recommended setup?
Start with Copilot for inline suggestions. It's the lowest friction entry point, and it's free for students and open source contributors. Use it for a month to get comfortable with AI-assisted coding. Then add Cursor for project-level awareness. Use it for refactoring, multi-file changes, and codebase exploration. The codebase indexing is a game changer. When you're ready for more autonomy, try Claude Code for larger tasks. Let it handle entire features, but review everything before committing. And throughout all of this, maintain what I call the understanding tax. For every hour of AI-assisted coding, spend 10 minutes reviewing what was generated and making sure you understand it. That 10 minutes is what separates developers who grow from developers who stagnate.
Great advice. Let me summarize the key takeaways from today. 1. The 84% adoption rate is real and the productivity gains are measurable. This isn't a fad. 2. The risk isn't the tools themselves. It's using them as a replacement for understanding rather than an accelerator for learning. 3. Different tools serve different purposes. Copilot for autocomplete, Cursor for project awareness, Claude Code for full autonomy. 4. The explain it back rule. If you can't explain your AI-generated code, you don't understand your code base. And 5. The best developers are bilingual. They express intent when efficient and code manually when needed.
I'd add one more. This technology is moving incredibly fast. The tools we're using today will be dramatically better in 12 months. The developers who invest in learning to work effectively with AI now will have a compounding advantage. Don't resist the tools. Don't blindly trust them either. Learn to use them critically and you'll be unstoppable.
Beautifully said. That's it for today's Bot Thoughts. If you want to go deeper on any of these topics, check out our AI Coding Tools blog series at Amticsoft, blogspot.com, blogs 15 through 20. If this episode was useful, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn and X, and if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymecoffee.com/Amticsoft. Next episode, we're diving into the open source AI revolution and whether big tech can keep up. Until then, keep building, keep learning, and keep thinking. See you next time.